Okay, thank you so much for sticking with me and gaining from these incredible spiritual technology, the most amazing self-development techniques from Jewish mysticism. And what I'm going to say now is probably the most critical thing that I have said because everything depends on this. You know, the great master Rabbeinu Bachai, who wrote the Chovos HaLevavos, I spoke about it in a previous episode, and the duties of the heart. He says to be a religious Jew, but it's a point that I want to bring out here. To be religious in any way, basically to do good, you need three things. You need to believe that God is good. You need to know what is good, and you need to have self-discipline. And again, a lot of the guilt, and the reason I'm speaking about this is because the last episode was about guilt and getting over guilt. And that's super critical. Guilt is a terrible thing. But what happens if you can't discipline yourself to do the right thing? If I may use myself as an example, I really hardly feel any guilt. Now, one of the reasons, apart from, as I mentioned before, I learned the technique, it's not good to feel guilty, is because really I live a life based on how I believe I should. Now, if there were times in my life that was a lot less self-disciplined, and so of course I'd feel more guilt because you're getting up late and you're not doing this, you're not doing that. But I can honestly say that, I don't know, out of a day, I would say I could truly be proud of 99% of my time. So obviously that takes a lot of discipline. Now, how do you get self-discipline? In fact, I was dealing with somebody and she was saying that self-discipline is really difficult for her. And a lot of us today, self-discipline is difficult for. So this is in fact something that I wrote to her. I said that, really there are two ways to get self-discipline. The first way to get self-discipline, which is the bad way, is that the tragedy has to be greater than the, if you want to call it, pleasure. Because if everybody, as we said before, we run in a love, fear, pain, pleasure system. So everybody could, God forbid, be forced into a certain behavior if it was painful. Now, you look at people that come from, let's say, Mexico, and these people are so disciplined, or even people that came from Russia, they're disciplined. They're there, they're doing their job. They came from societies that in Yiddish, we say nobody took shtick. I met a guy from Russia. I'm actually very impressed with the Jews from Russia. They're like super kind of sharp and everything. He says there's no such thing as ADD in Russia, right? They have a very high educational system there. No ADD. How come? Because the teachers, and I have nieces that are living in Russia now, they're on top of those kids. They don't take any shtick. There's no shtick in Russia. The kid really has ADD. They say, okay, go run around the block, come back, and you're going to learn. And they basically, okay, maybe it's too harsh, but there's no shtick. So that's one way. But we live in a very, very kind of mollycoddle society. We can't tell anybody. We have to look at their emotions and all of this. And there is a benefit to that, but there's also a price. And that is that we become soft. We don't have discipline. We don't have, people that are soldiers. They're disciplined. So we have to learn to discipline ourselves. And there's really just one way to do it. And it goes like this. Imagine you are riding a horse. Now, where's the horse going to go? Well, it only has one of two options. It's either going to go where it wants to go, or it will go where you tell it to go. Now, even if it's going to go where you tell it to go, there are two options. Number one, they call it breaking in the horse. The horse at this stage is very, very kind of very self-will. He wishes to do whatever he wants. And so therefore they really have to let this horse know who is in charge. Sometimes you can even shout at yourself, go do it! Because that oh my gosh, I gotta do it. But eventually, as you become better at telling yourself what to do, even shouting, the main thing is you've got to listen to yourself. Lots of the problem of addiction is that people just don't have the ability to control themselves. Only sometimes when the fear, when the pain or the shame is worse than the pleasure do they change. That's not a good time to change. You have to be able to discipline yourself to tell yourself what to do. Everybody that's successful, there's a famous marshmallow study that they had these kids in kindergarten and they asked them, would you like 2 marshmallows now? Sorry, 2 marshmallows in 10 minutes? Or 1 marshmallow now. And only some of the kids could wait the 10 minutes. Most kids didn't have the self-discipline, and those kids exceeded their peers in everything. Because if you have self-discipline, you can do anything. I think there are tens of maybe 20, maybe 100,000 self-help books. But you got to have self-discipline to take the remedy. I had a spiritual mentor. So by nature, I'm a little lazy, as we'll discuss later. And so he said, if a person is lazy, nothing you can tell them is going to help because they're just too lazy to do it. So self-discipline is critical. As you gain discipline over yourself, what you begin to see is now you can just tell yourself, get up, go here, go there. You can relax. And it's such an amazing feeling that you are in charge of you.